KoitCast.
Today's guest is a marine biologist, oceanographer, master scuba diver, NASA and Navy scientist, international lecturer and near-death experiencer. Her worldwide oceanographic surveys and her love for travel have brought her to visit over 55 countries where she shared both science and spirituality. Please give a huge Koit welcome to Ingrid Honkala. Hi Ingrid, welcome to KoitCast.
Thank you so much for having me here, Koit. I feel honored.
No, the honour is mine. Thank you for coming. Thank you for giving up your time. It's much appreciated. We should always start by saying, who are you, where are you from, etc.
Okay, as you just mentioned, my name is Ingrid Honkala, and I was born in Bogota, Colombia. And now I live in the United States, where I have been for the past 22 years. So, yeah, in the South, I live close to a big city called New Orleans.
Oh, yes.
I live in Mississippi, just right in the border between Louisiana and Mississippi.
Awesome. Excellent. Thank you. Now, looking at your career history, you are a number of things, but something led you to the ocean. Can you tell me what led you to the ocean and your desire to discover and learn more about it?
You know, incredibly, I would just say in the depthness of things, what brought me to the ocean was to die. I had a near-death experience when I was I have had 3 near-death experiences, but the first one happened when I was close to 3 years old, and I drowned. And people ask me, how could you become a marine scientist if you drown? And I said, because drowning brought me to see the light. So from that moment, that connection with water happened, and I wanted to know the depthness of everything. And I think even the wanting to know the depthness of everything brought me even to be professional scuba diver. I wanted to deep in. And the other thing, when I was 4 years old, my parents brought me to see the ocean for the first time. I was born in the mountains. But when they took me to see the ocean, I was completely mesmerized. I was like, and that thing that you stare and you just kind of like in this complete pause. And my mom like shook me like, what is going on? And I just said, Mom, someday I'm going to know what is under that blanket.
That's amazing.
And from that moment on, I wanted everything that was related with the oceans. And then I started to receive books and everything about fish, everything about that world just completely kind of caught my attention in its fullness. And then when I was 5 years old, my dad I even have the complete visual memory how my dad was standing like in the patio of the house, like leaning towards the frame of the door. And I came to him and I said, Dad, when I grow up, I'm going to be a marine scientist. And my dad, he said he didn't even know where that came from because, again, I was born in the mountains. So he will always tell the story like, she told me she wanted to be a marine scientist. And he said, if that's what you want, that's what you're going to do. And then, of course, as a child, people think, oh, she'll change her mind. No, that's all I wanted. The other thing that is important about me growing with this love for the ocean and going deep was other thing I experienced during my first near death was I went to the place of silence. Absolute, complete, pure silence. To the point that I call it the silence behind the silence. And I craved that silence for the rest of my life. And I realized that always around people, there was noise. There was always noise. And one of the ways for me to be around people but be in silence was diving.
I see. Yeah.
When I'm deep in the ocean, I can be with all the people, but we just have to be quiet.
Yeah,
So
just shush.
yeah, just so it was like it was all these components. Another thing, I love nature. And it's always, how can I be a voice for protecting what for many of us, when we become arrogant about thinking that nature is, we forgot, is what I want to probably say. We forget that we are nature. And we think that we are the ones dominating nature, and we become arrogant in that sense. And is the work I've done through the years, bringing consciousness to people. We are nature. Don't forget, we are nature. And how can we be responsible, take responsibility of ourselves and our system? I work in really beautiful projects. It was a big project about mangrove ecosystems in the Caribbean, and I became the lead for that project in the islands of the Caribbean. And it was not forbidding people from using the resources, but teaching people how to use them in a manageable way. Teach them, you are this. If you destroy this, you destroy yourself. So people started to understand, and we create greenhouses, and people for the first time started to grow mangroves. We wrote books. It was a work in community. So we created consciousness in the community. Then later I worked for NASA, and it was very big projects. Again, I became an expert in climate change, and how, again, bring this knowledge, teach people how to work with consciousness with our planet that we have been misusing and destroying.
Definitely. It's very arrogant of man to assume that he can control nature. All you've got to do is look in the garden, right? We'll do some weeding. 6 weeks later, then weeds are back. You ain't ever going to win against nature. You're not.
Exactly. So
It's a
how
powerful
to
thing.
work with it, with responsibility.
Quality. Well, let's break down a lot of the stuff that you said there. So you had your near-death experience when you were, sorry, did you say 3 years old?
Yeah, close to 3. I was 2 years old, very close to 3.
Do you know what happened, or did you have to get told that? I mean, is it something you consciously remember, or did you get told about it later?
Completely unconsciously remember.
Ooh.
You know, these things in life that they impact you to the point that they never come out of your mind. It's just so ingrained. I even talk to you about, or share with people this experience, and it's like I am there.
So in your head now, whilst talking to me, you're still seeing it or hearing it, that sort of thing?
Yes, hearing, wow, feeling, sensing. This pretty much became the engine for the rest of my life. This experience completely changed. And you know, we're saying that, oh, but 2-year-old, how much experience you have, no matter. Almost 3 years of life were 3 years of life, and there was a before and after. Very clearly about the person I was becoming and what kept happening after that. So yes, when I talk, and you know, when we talk about what is real and what is reality, for me, this experience was most, or is being, or when I have had the near-death experiences, touching the place of knowing what is real, knowing what is true. So yeah, these experiences stay with me for the rest of my life, especially because also after my first near death, it's not like you have a switch on and off. I kept having experiences for the rest of my life. It's like it wasn't just one event. Many things kept happening afterwards, that I always say, Koit, is like, for me, the door never closed. For me, the door never closed. And I kept repeating this every time I gave talks, and only I would just say a couple of years ago, I received this teaching that says, Ingrid, of course, the door never closed because there are no doors.
Yeah, there is no spoon. It's the matrix.
Yeah, the light of consciousness, as we call it, universal consciousness, source, God, call it whatever you want, are here for you always. Consciousness is what you are. Is the light of consciousness is you. That's what we are. So it's like, I see. What happened is that due to conditioning, due to beliefs, due to experiences of fear, all kind of different things, all the intergenerational burdens, we start creating doors. We're the ones that, due to all these things, start blocking our view, like we call it veil, we call it different ways. We start creating all these doors, and that's the work of becoming a conscious being. Start removing, peeling those layers so you can go back to remember the light that you are. Oh, I am soul, I am light, and I'm connected always with the light of consciousness.
I want to go back to your first experience. Can you, obviously you say you consciously remember it. What physically happened to you, and then how did the experience manifest?
Well, back then, like I said to you, I was born in Bogota, Colombia. My parents used to work and would leave us at the care of a maid. And when they were not around, she did not pay attention at all of the things we were doing. Like, and then one day, my parents left. My oldest sister, she was close to 4, so just 2 little children. And then the 2 of us, hey, no one is taking care, no one is watching. Let's go play in the patio. And the thing is that in the patio there was a big tank that it was used to it was a big tank, like about 900 gallons of water. And the purpose of this tank was to collect water for hand washing clothes, especially. Back then we didn't have a washing machine. So next to the tank, there was a flat surface for scrubbing. And we were not, of course, allowed to play in that tank because we didn't know how to swim. But no one is watching, so let's play cash across the tank. You know, when you're a child and you want to do what you're told not to do. We climbed the walls of the tank because it was pretty high. And then my sister sat on the flat surface, so she was a little bit safer. I went on the other side of the tank and it was a thin edge. And I was leaning very precariously in this tank, but of course you're not thinking about anything else, you're having fun. My sister threw the ball. She didn't apply enough force. The ball fell and was floating on the water. And then I thought, I could grab it. I leaned forward, and when I touched the ball, it rolled. I lost my balance and I fell in the tank. The first feeling, Koit, was the feeling that this water was frigid cold. The people have the misconception that because I'm from Colombia, I come from hot weather country, but I have mentioned a couple of times I was born in the mountains, up in the Andes. So the temperature in this water that early in the morning, it was about 6 something in the morning, had to be around maybe 40, 50 degrees Fahrenheit. That would be maybe 4, 5 degrees Celsius.
Thank you for converting, because I didn't have a clue.
Yes. So it was pretty cold. So imagine the first feeling was this water was frigid cold. It already right there, the impact of the cold water took my, like it took my breath away. You know, and one of the things that have been hard, and it took many, many, many years to, because it's trauma, all the trauma involved in these experiences, was that sense of cold. Just recently, maybe later we can talk about, I was able to get in a cold water without suffering about it. And then the next feeling was the sense of why I cannot breathe. I had never been underwater, never been in a pool. I didn't know that if you have your head under the water, you drown. So now from that whole feeling to the feeling of why I cannot breathe, that's when the terror took over. And you, of course, in this stage, you want to survive. You want to get out of this water. I didn't know how to swim, and I just sank. And then is when the miracle happened, Koit. Is when I went from that desperate state of wanting to get out of this tank and this horror to complete peace. How can you forget that? Complete and absolute peace. I can even feel it as I talk with you. This sense of serenity, calmness. I didn't know what happened. All I knew is I don't need to breathe anymore. I don't need to get out of this tank. I don't need to go anywhere. I'm just at peace. And then this is the time when I always bring that to people, because it's when they ask me your question, how can you remember if you were so young? First, the contrast. I always like and love the word contrast. That's what brings clarity to everything, because I say first, drowning was very traumatic. I don't think you can forget something like this. Second, there's many things that offer so much contrast. The first thing, the noise. I live in a very noisy house, and that noise mixed, we have birds and dogs, and there was always noise. And the last thing I heard before I drowned was my heart pounding in my chest. Imagine when you're very scared and your heart is beating like crazy, and the beating is so hard, I heard it in my head like a drum. And when I went into the state of peace, gone. All noise was gone. And it's when I said to you, I call it the silence behind the silence. Why? Because it's the silence with absolute peace. And that peace was so incredible that I craved this silence for the rest of my life. After the experience, I would hide in closets, under the bed, under the sheets, wherever. I wanted that silence back. It was a desperate. And then the other contrast that happened is that this tank was a very dark space. It was very early in the morning. The tank was so deep, and it was made of cement. So the last thing I saw when my eyes opened was darkness. So imagine, this is very impactful. It was this darkness. And when I entered into the peace and silence, suddenly I saw light. And the light came from below. And this was the other thing. It was like, oh, now there is light. Imagine when you're in that fear, and suddenly the comfort of the light. And the light came from below. And it was like the light of a candle. It was soft, but it was able to illuminate the whole surrounding. So now I feel like I'm held by these lights. There's no need to fear. You're in peace. You have light. And then suddenly I started to see bubbles. And the bubbles were surrounded by light. And now this was like, oh, this is so beautiful. And I started to have the sense of this is fun. And then by me chasing these bubbles, because this was fun, I turned around, Koit, and it's when I saw my body in the water. And when I saw the body, I had the absolute clarity. Oh, that's my body. And not just the clarity, but this feeling of something familiar, like, oh, this is normal. Like this already happened. Like, I don't know how to explain, but it was the sense of familiarity, like this is a normal thing. And then the only thing, that's why it didn't shock me at all. But the only thing that shocked me about seeing the body was the eyes. You know how we say that the eyes are the mirror of the soul? Guess what I saw in the body? That the body was empty.
Yeah, you could see the light in them, essentially. Yeah.
Yes, the eyes were empty. There was emptiness. It was like, oh. And it's just, you know, that sense of like the body was just a shell, just a dress, like that body that was empty. But it came here the other contrast. I was born as a very sick child. And people make think like why a child is born sick like that. In my case, there was a purpose for it. Imagine if I would have born as a very healthy, in a well-being, then I don't, maybe this experience happened and there's not enough contrast for me to remember it, probably because I go from to well. No, I was born very sick. And I spent the first 3 years of my life, almost 3 years sick. I didn't know anything else. I was born with respiratory problems. So imagine what is coughing, always congested, always sick. And then I am now in the state of absolute and complete well-being for the first time. So what do you think happened? When the moment I saw that body, I said, oh no, I'm not going back to that. See, so imagine all this awareness, all this clarity, all this presence. And I'm like, I'm not going back to that body. And I turned around and left the body behind. That's what I'm telling you. I'm experiencing what is real, what is true. This whole state of just realizing how well and how incredible this was, I could make these decisions.
When you walked away from the body or moved away from your body, did you care about it? Or did you think,
Not at all. Oh, no, absolutely not. And then when I turned around, I started to see flowers. So I even got more mesmerized with the body. Ciao. And then I saw flowers blooming from nowhere. And I felt it kept like really engaged with what was happening. And it was majestic. Imagine flowers now blooming. And then the flowers pick me up. So imagine even the sense of dimension. At that moment, I didn't think that, but later I just thought, oh, the flowers have to be enormous because they pick me up. And now I'm being carried. And I'm being carried. And I put the analogy, Koit, it is like I went back to the womb when you don't have to do anything. You're just being carried, you're just being done. And I was like, oh, this is so good. Like completely relaxing, feeling great. And this is when something that unexpected happened. I went from being carried by the flowers in just a flash to be in the maid's room. And I'm floating above her, like I'm looking at her from above and like, oh, that's Maria. And Maria was completely unaware of what is happening, and she's listening to soap operas in the radio. This is so amazing that years later, we're talking to my mom about the whole experience, all that happened. We realized that because I even know the soap opera she was listening and everything is, and when we went to look later already when there was internet, so it wasn't so many years after, it was just a few years ago, I realized that soap opera I recognized she was listening was airing at the moment. So that's how real this feels and how the memory is so clear about what happened. And then since Maria didn't pay attention about anything, in another blink like that, I appear in my mom's path. What this means, my mom didn't have a car. She was walking. She was close to her bus stop. And then now I'm floating above her. And I have to say two important things about this moment of the experience, that this is what validates the experience, because now we have a witness, and because now I'm seeing someone and knowing exactly where this person is, what this person doing. So I'm clearly in my spirit self, far away from where I drowned. About 10 minutes, she had to walk about 10 minutes to get to her bus stop. And I'm seeing her. And the other thing, I think this is what blows everybody's minds away, because the moment I'm about my mom, I said, "Oh, that's mom." She stopped. She stopped. And I have to give you a little bit more context here. My mom had got a new job, and she was very thrilled to go to her new job. Something really have to be this strong that you decide to stop and not to feel the responsibility and the call to go to your new job. She stopped. She did not even hesitate. She knew something was happening at home with one of her daughters. And she turned around and started to run back home. But there's two things I have to say about my mom. She was a very intuitive person, and she listened to her intuition. And she's running. And then at that moment that she's running back home, I look at her and I'm like, oh, I wonder why she's running. And at that very moment, I also have not just the sense she's running, but at the end of the street, I saw a dog. And the moment I saw the dog and pay attention to the dog and felt the desire to be with the dog, it's like this thing, I love animals. And that desire to wanting to be with the dog brought me immediately to be with the dog. And I'm like, whoa. And then I change my view and I see a park. And the moment I feel the desire to be in the park, I am in the park.
Did that dog see you or hear you?
I don't know if he did or not. I can't. This is the first time I am asked that. I don't, I will have to think about it, but I remember just being with the dog. I don't know. It had to, because I was engaged. I engaged with the dog, but I don't know the dog.
Be interesting to know if it was a reaction, was it turned its head towards you or like dogs do. That would be interesting.
You know what? Actually, this is the very first time I'm asked this question, but the dog did, because the dog engaged.
There you go. Which is interesting, isn't it? Because that's a clarity, because our dog does it. You'll just suddenly turn and look. I mean, there could be him trying to listen for a noise or whatever, but it always makes you think, is there someone or something there?
That's so good. I'm glad you asked me that. This is the very first time, but yeah, the dog engaged, because I remember seeing the dog and being with the dog and the dog being engaged. Wow, this is beautiful. Thank you for bringing that up. But it was quick. It was pretty quick. Like I engaged, like when you say the dog or the animal, because I remember being very quick. It's not like I stayed with the dog, because at that very moment that I am with the dog, I see a park. I want to be in the park.
The next shiny thing, yeah.
Yeah, it was fast. So now I am in the park. We're like, whoa. So once I realized that I could be and do anything I wanted anytime, I started to play that game of going places. See, it was fast, fast, fast. And then it was like time and space the way we know it, gone. I could be anywhere, anytime. And once I'm playing this game in another blink like that, I now appear in a realm. And it was a realm made of pure, bright, intense, shiny light. And it was the very first time, quite in my almost 3 years of life, that I felt I am home. It was that sense of being home, how home feels, embracing, warm, welcoming. Oh, this is good, good. And also something happened. It was the moment when I had the clarity. Up to this moment, although I have seen the body, I have the eyes, it felt empty, all that, I did not have the realization up to this point that I wasn't that. It's hard to explain, but it's the moment that I said, I am not that. I'm not that body. I'm not that person. I'm not that. And it's when I realized myself as light. Say,
Can I ask you another question here? When you
yes,
realise that you're light, what do you then realise that the body is? Are you looking at it like a costume, or is it something else?
like a costume is when I had that realization. Yeah, that's not who I am. That's just let's that's just an aspect. That's just, but that's not who I am. I'm not that body. See, and it was this clarity. I am this light. I am the light. But I was still having a sense of self, even knowing I am not that body. And then when I had this, I started to feel the sense of connecting. I have to also be very clear with you here. Many of the things that I came to understand came later. Many of the understandings of this experience came later. At the moment, I'm not having this dialogue or this is this. I am just realizing things. Later in my life, I would say I have the experience and the understandings came later. And it took many years to integrate this experience and many teachings and many, oh, that's what happened. Oh, that's what happened. Oh, that's what happened. And it's funny because in many, and I have met many teachers, gurus, masters, organizations, people that have had experiences, and they said, everything that I have read in, they said, what we have read in the books, you already experience. So for them, for many people come the readings, then the experience. For me came the experience, and later through readings and classes and understandings and people, I started to make sense of all that happened. See, so many of the clarities that I got about the experience came later. At the moment, this is the feeling I have. See, I'm not going into, oh, that is this or that. No, this is just the feeling I have. I am light. But it was again, and it was this sense that I started to feel like I was interconnected with everything. Sense of, see, so knowing I'm not the body, I'm not confined in a space, made me feel expanded. And that was not all. That sense of self even vanished for me. I completely, when you say you knew that you were that, or you just left the body, I even left behind the sense of self. In a moment in which I experienced, I call it many years, I have say the word nothingness, and people get scared with the word nothingness, but I am going to explain why is this nothingness is, and later again I understand is the place where pure potential is. See, if you have a place of pure light, potential as light is the place of where creation happens, where you have to go to the center of nothingness for things to come, for something to be. See, the place of just absolute beingness. And to give you an analogy, imagine that there's a stadium, huge stadium.
Mm-hmm.
And in the middle of a stadium, there's a little box. And all I knew about myself was that little tiny box. And suddenly the box opened. And you realize, whoa, in a way, nothing, because it's nothing that I thought I was. And at the same time, wholeness, totality. So I went to this place of feeling that I was whole, interconnected with absolutely everything. And this is one of the moments most difficult to explain. I really don't, the more I just put it into words, it's like lose its purity. It was just, oh my God, incredible. The only thing I can use as words is pure presence and absolute consciousness. It was just, and if I would have any words that describe an emotion, I would just say bliss.
And in that bliss state, right, you know, your body, that's is known as Ingrid to you at that point. Did you have any understanding or knowing about a name for your light being? Are there names for that, or is it just a nothingness, like you said?
Oh, I can even come and talk to you about later in my life. When I came back from the experience, it was very difficult because I did not have, since I went into that state, I lost the sense of identification with names, body, persona. See, and I was so little, I was a little child. So when I came back without that sense, with that sense of I'm not that body, I'm not that name, I'm not. Later on, when people ask me or call me Ingrid, I will be aggravated. I will feel very aggravated. And then one evening, like, they were calling me for dinner, and then I said, "Don't call me like that. That is not my name." And when they said, "Then what is your name? What should we call you?" My answer would be, "I do not need one." See, I went to that place of no labels. So when I say nothing is nothing, you can really describe, label, name. I really touch the place of pure potential. And then that's maybe we can go back to that to show
Yeah,
you
sure.
how I started to receive teachings from the
Yeah, no
spirit
worries.
world.
We'll park that for later then. So you carry
Yeah,
on. You're in this nothingness.
that way people don't feel, oh, what happened? How did you get rescued? So I'm in this space of, we call it nothingness, wholeness. And then my mom finally arrived home. And I'm completely disconnected. I'm completely disconnected from this physical reality. And my mom arrived home and she knew exactly where to go. This is the other amazing thing. We lived in a big house. She could have gone any other place in the house. And of course, the body cannot take it that long. I think, again, what saved the body was that the water was frigid cold. I think that was key there. And then my mom ran to the back of the house, and my oldest sister was still there, trying to get me out. People ask why she didn't go to the maid. Guess what? Because we're supposed not to play in this tank, and you're not just going to go there like, oh, my sister is there. And my mom arrived, and she was there to tell my mom, Ingrid is there, and I cannot get her. My mom jumped in the tank, got me out. She said that I was like a raggedy doll, no pulse, no breathing. My mom pulled me out of the tank. And this is another thing. My mom was trained to do CPR for children. She worked with children and she had taken some classes of that. And my mom, she wasn't any expert, but she knew whatever she knew she was doing to me. And again, I didn't feel anything she was doing to this body. It was, at this point, no connection, nothing. And then suddenly I felt, Koit, that I had jumped from the tallest building in the world. And there was nothing I could do to stop it. And I just felt that, like, no, I resisted. But it was like a vacuum. It was something pulling me back, like a vacuum. And there was nothing I could do. And then I knew I was back in the body when the feelings of cold, and again, this sick body, this limited, imagine I went from the expanded state of being, the huge stadium, back into the little box. The difference is that although I went back into the box and I was very angry, I didn't want to be in the box, I had the awareness of what had happened.
Amazing.
I came back and I was very angry. And why? This is another analogy I can give you. Imagine you take a child to an amusement park and you're having the fun of the world. This is the most fun day of your life. And now they say we have to go. Oh no, the child is going to cry, throw a tantrum. I don't want to go. That's how I felt. And I was angry with my mom, and I didn't want to be back. And it took a lot of patience from my parents, from my mom, because I refused to eat. I
Oh,
didn't want to.
whoa. That's
Yeah,
hardcore tantrum then, isn't it?
it was hardcore, and for days I wanted to go back. And I didn't know how I wanted to go back, because and again, I didn't even know what happened. I just knew I was having the time of my life, and now I was back here.
What does your mum say about the point where you were over her going towards the bus stop and she stopped and turned around? That intuition, what was it to her? Was it a vocalization or was it a knowing?
Later in life, when we talk about the experience, it was a knowing. She knew with that intensity that the heart talked to her. She pulled her and she turned around. So it was a complete knowing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think your presence above was the spark that created the knowing, or was the knowing there and then you were just witnessing it?
No, I clearly felt that, and that was this thing that I came to understand more clearly later. But it was a connection soul to soul. I had a higher purpose. This is the part where this is interesting, because when I decided not to go back in the body, who decided that?
Yeah, that
My
was going to be one of my questions. Yeah.
my ego mind. The ego mind doesn't want the ego mind wants comfort. It doesn't want to suffer. It doesn't want to feel the discomfort of that body. So that was a decision of my ego mind. That I have very clear. Oh, of course, I'm not going back to that body. But my soul had a higher purpose. And the purpose of my soul is like, oh no, you're going back. I'm going back. I have work to do still. So that's why I said the purpose of the soul overrides the needs of the ego. See, that's why it was later when I entered into the light that I realized I am not that. See, but up to that point, I was still feeling that I was that ego mind, until it was like, no, you're not that. This is the other thing, that this is pretty interesting, because only recently, talking to someone that is a very, very beautiful soul, is teacher from India, one that is considered like a yogi.
Okay.
This person, I started to share with her the experience very in depth, and I said to her, because she was saying we always keep our individuality, and I said, but I lost it. When I died, I merged with God. I wasn't an individual anymore. And she said, but look, you're back, and you're still an individual. So I said, so that was that, let's call it that conflict of idea. And then is when she explained something really beautiful to me. She said, imagine that you are a baby, and the baby, of course, we all have, because we are all soul and emanation of the source. And then at that moment, the baby is being held by the mom or the dad. And the baby is always going to be that individual, let's call it that ray of light. Imagine a sun, and each one of us is an emanation, like a ray that comes from that light of consciousness. And then at that moment, you are embraced by the mom, by the dad, and the baby so happy, so joyful, so comfortable, that you melt with the mom and the dad. It doesn't mean the baby disappeared. It doesn't mean the self, see the baby as that emanation disappear. It's just feel the sense of oneness, of complete connection. It's when we know everything is connected. See, even though you are a ray that emanates from the soul, you're still connected to the source. See, that's why there's that sense of oneness is that sense of connection. We're all connected. And that's what I experienced. And I would just say I melted in the arms of God, and I experienced what we call love, which is the state of absolute connection, connectiveness, closeness, embrace. See, I didn't have the word God, or I didn't have the word love, all this stuff. I was just 2 years old, but I experienced that in the core of my being.
Which you then, like you said, later on you put understanding around, coloured in the picture, so
and
to speak.
words and everything else. I'm like, people call love. That's what people call God. That's what people call this. That's what people call that. See? Later it came as, okay, description, words, whatever, but I had the pure experience. So when I came back, I looked at my parents and I had this realization. I knew, I said, it was that feeling, these are not just my parents. In that state of oneness, if you are one with me, guess what? We have this equal place. So I felt my parents as my equal. And I just say, why do I have to listen to these people? And I became very rebellious.
You were a parent's nightmare at that point.
Oh, yeah, I was. And I was like, and I would look at other children and be like, what is happening to these people? They don't know anything. So I could not relate. I could not relate with other people. I could not relate with anybody. I could not, again, because I didn't have the understanding I have today, I could not even relate with my own persona. I look at myself and I said, I'm not a child. I'm not a child. And I never felt like a child again. So imagine how hard growing up with no language at that moment to express what you're experiencing, with no one around you understanding. I used to cry. I said, God, why did you send me back here with no manual? This is so hard. But thankfully for me, and I guess for everybody else, what I needed happened in the sense of I started to have connection with what I named beings of light. What happened here, it is that after my near-death experience, I kept going to the realm of the light. That's why I said the door never closed. Why never closed? Because the box, imagine the box stayed open.
Slightly open, yeah.
Slightly open. So I kept having that clear connection with the truth that we are light. We are light, and we're always connected to our creator, to the source of light, the source of consciousness. So I kept that awareness. And now every night when I went to bed, when I will close my eyes and the focus over is not the outer reality, I will go back to the realm of the light. And then I wanted to be there. So now, of course, my parents fired that lady that almost let me drown. And then they hired a new one. And now I wanted to sleep all the time. But of course, she'll let me. If she doesn't have to take care of me because I'm sleeping, that's a good thing for her.
Yeah. Easy life, that one. Easy money.
Easy. Exactly. So I would just go asleep and I will be in my place of connecting back with the light. And in one of these journeys, one day I was surrounded by light, like points of light. I'd say starlight figures. Some people call them like orbs, whatever the name is. And then they were shining in all different colors to the infinite. Imagine if you go at night to see the stars and you see, I don't know when you can say they end. Imagine that, but everything was light and the points of light were shining in all different colors. And I'm looking at this like, wow, this is incredible. And in one of these journeys, one of these lights that was shining in gold shaped itself into a human form. to give me that clarity, that understanding that we are the same. And it touched me. And when I said, "Oh, you are a being of light." And from that point on, I mean, yeah, if you see someone, it's just the clear, what would you say, description of what I was seeing. You are a being of light. So I kept calling them beings of light. But of course, I could not be sleeping all my life. That just doesn't make sense. So this had to balance. And the way it balanced was that one day I was taking a shower and I'm relaxing there in the shower. Oh, feeling good. When suddenly I saw one of these lights shining in the bathroom in pure, intense blue. And it's when I said, oh, now the beings of light are here. And I started to see them everywhere. And just to bring to you how also the aspect of Ingrid being able to function here started to happen when I saw the beings of light for the first time. I felt the sense that, oh, it's okay. It's okay. I'm okay. I'm going to be okay. And when things really became better was when they appeared here.
And that's why they did it, presumably, to set you at ease so that you could live this life and learn whatever you needed to do, etc.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So now I felt the sense of like, oh, I can be here. And I started to feel I can play with my sisters, eat, do these things. Now they are here.
A
Yeah.
question about these beings of light, which is essentially what we all are in theory, presumably. Do you see them now? Like, if you look around you in your house there, can you see them? Or is it just they appear when you need to see them? Is it that sort of thing?
It's both, because there's some I see all the time, and there's some that appear, say, when I am talking with somebody, or when I do one-on-one sessions, or when I'm in a talk, depending. So depending on the needs, the situation, they will come and they share with me things about other people if needed for their healing, whatever it is. So
Sure.
yeah, yes.
So, and this isn't a request for any readings or anything like that, but have you ever like been on an interview like this, as an example, and you've seen one behind the person you'll speak to?
Oh yes. Oh
Whoa.
yes. Yes. So that's really beautiful, because they're with us always. We all have we're all in the company of what we call our guardian angel, or what we call our guides. They're always here. Yeah, always present. So that's really beautiful. Yeah.
So now you're seeing these beings. What do they speak to you, or do you just hear their thoughts, or how does that work?
In all different ways too. Like, it comes the part where when I started to hear them for the first time, because at the beginning I only could see them,
Okay.
and I could see and I could feel. This is not just a scene. I can even, is this, when you, depending on which being you're meeting, they all carry different frequency, and it's just this felt sense. Oh, it's really incredible feeling. And also smell, can you smell flowers? See, they carry different, it's amazing. Like, we have a scent. So I could feel and experience all these, like when you go to a garden full
Mm-hmm.
of different kinds of flowers, you're exploring all these, and there's all these different scents, and it's incredible. And then the first time I heard them for the first time, when I hear them for the first time, when I threw that tantrum about telling the maid that I didn't need a name. And that was the first time that I heard voice. I heard voice as hearing you talking to me. See, so there's different ways to hear. Some ways to hear is by listening, like you, I call it, we have the spiritual senses too. So we have like an inner listening, but this time I heard it like if I'm talking with you. So I can hear that way. Sometimes it's just a knowing. Sometimes it's a download of information. Sometimes I perceive and see symbols. Sometimes it's different ways. But this time it was like someone is whispering in my ear. And I'm hearing it's going to take time for them to understand that names are not needed in the realm of the light. See? But I have learned and I have visited many different realms, and let's call it dimensions of reality. And there's a dimension that is the non-physical dimension that is very similar. Some call it the lower astral, which is very similar to this one. There we still need labels because the mind is very powerful and we need to feel identified with things. The higher you go, the less identified with things you become. See? And then I was having that absolute clarity. Labels are not needed in the realm of the light. Here, a rose, you call it a rose, but is it, do you really need this label to understand the nature of the rose? No, you don't. When you are a little child, you don't even know that a rose is a rose and you can still smell it, enjoy it, see it. See, so it was that clarity. And it's when I heard labels are not needed in the realm of the light. That's why you feel that you don't need a name. And I said, oh, I'm so glad, because I felt the sense I am not crazy. But of course, later I understood that labels are needed, names are needed in our human experience. How could we even or kind of make sense of everything? Yeah, so it is needed, and names carry energy and everything. But that was my understanding at that moment. I also heard your experience and the experiences you're going to have. So I knew more things like these were coming, are not for you to keep. Someday you will share, but not now. And I saw that when in the future this was going to happen. And they say because they cannot understand. They're not ready. Someday they will. But in my mind as a child was like, what is not to understand? What? So imagine the conflict inside me, how I am in a world that no one understands what I do. But pretty quick, I realized they didn't. Every time I talk about it, mention anything, people look at me like,
Yeah, you're the weird one then. That's right.
yeah, I definitely was. And people would just think you are very, especially with children, what an imagination. This child is just, well, really different. And I became very quiet, very, very quiet. And the other thing, they said there will be people in your path to help you and to guide you. And it was so like that. And the first person in my life to guide me was my mom. She was the person that validated that what I was seeing was real. Because when I went to kindergarten, I started to, the beings of light told me not to say anything, but they didn't tell me not to paint. And as a child, you have to express yourself somehow. I think if you don't, I don't know how you can hold this inside. And I started to paint beings of light everywhere, like a compulsive painting. And then the teacher, very curious, she's like, are these the stars, the sun? Like, what is going on with this child? They already thought I was kind of different. And then I said, no, these are my friends, the beings of light. And then is when the teacher was like, whoa, this
We've
child
got
has
one. Yeah.
yeah, this child has imaginary friends. Let's just call the parents. But there's another important thing you have to know, Koit, and is that another way to validate that this child came with something different other than this whole no one understanding what is going on. Of course, what I'm going to share now, nobody understood either, but it's part of a validation that something really happened that changed the consciousness of this child. When I came back, imagine I'm just going to be 3 years old. And now I could read, I could write, I could develop mathematical problems, I could put together complex puzzles, I could paint. I even had for the age, a more elaborated, complex language than the one I had before.
So you came back powered up, so to speak.
Yes. And of course, this started to show up as I was doing activities. And when I started at school, it was like, whoa. But there was not, in Colombia, there was no programs for children like me. So teachers felt actually aggravated with my presence. And they'll be like, if you know everything, just sit in that corner and let us be. Because for me, it was the sense I'm not learning anything, I'm just remembering.
I also think that way, by the way, because when I was at school, the same thing happened to me, right? And I don't need to big up my IQ or anything, but I know I'm a decent, intelligent chap, right? And I always felt, why are you talking common sense? Everyone should know this stuff already, right? But they don't. But you think that because you're in yourself, knowing what you know, and you think, "Ooh, that means that they must know it as well." But they don't, do they? And that's weird.
Yes. So I'm so glad you understand this, because they were not just aggravated with me, I was aggravated with them.
Yes.
So I would sit in the corner, I could cross my arms and I was like, oh. So it was very hard dealing with this child. I felt pity for whoever dealing with the Ingrid back then. And I have to say to my mom later, Mom, forgive me. But my mom was the most patient, loving being, compassionate I have ever met. And I'm so grateful I chose her to be my mom, because of course I knew she could be the person. When I'm saying I knew all these, I know clearly that there is a pre-plan, and we chose each other. And with my mom, when she was called to school and she started to see all the drawings, the teacher was like really asking. And my mom, there was a moment where I turned to her, because we also realized that I was able not just to see something that they couldn't explain, but I could see auras. All my paintings, everything clearly was surrounded by these specific colors around. And I look at my mom, and in that desperation to be validated, I told my mom,
I have a question for you. Sorry about this. The aura, is it the glow of the light being within us that's just sort of like coming off the body? Is that what it is?
yes, because we're made of light. We are radiant light. So and I'll go back to the thing with my mom, but have you seen a movie called Cocoon?
Yeah. Yes. That's what they look like. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I saw that movie, and I saw the being, the alien ripping the body. I said, oh, for the first time, I'm seeing something that was that knowing that I had. Said, we are that, we are light. We are light. See, so yeah, we have many different levels of we have we have the physical body, we have even like what is the emotional body is an energy, the mental body is an energy, what people call the astral body, the spiritual body. So we are made of, wow, so many, we're very complex. And with the word being, human being, the non-physical and the physical, the divine and the form. It's like, so yeah, we're always shining our light. And I was seeing this. So my mom is, when I turned to my mom and I said, Mom, these are the beings of light and these are the colors that we wear. My mom looked at me with these mom eyes like, be quiet. Like of course, also my perception, I was very, again, when you have experienced that level of connection, oh no, people could not lie to me. I mean, I would just know, I could feel like I was almost like the how you call that,
A lie detector.
a lie, yeah, a
Mm.
lie detector. So the moment my mom looked at me with these big mom eyes, like, don't say another word, I went quiet. And my mom said to the teacher, this is just a phase, we'll work it. And then we left. I was very sad, of course, no one believed me. And when I'm with my mom on the way back home, she said to me for the first time, she said, I believe you. And it's when she revealed to me that she believed me because she also could see things that others could not see. And it's when she said that she can see what we call spirits, and she could see them since she was a little child. And then is when I also realized later in life that I come from a bloodline of people that we might call seers, mediums, psychics. So that also run in my line. And so for my mom, it was clear I had this ability too, but she told me, do not tell anyone. Because she said people fear what they cannot see. And I don't want you to be someone that is out there being treated. I was already treated differently, so now imagine adding these layers. I'm like, you're not talking to anybody about this.
You've come back from your near-death experience, right? With gifts, technically, yeah. Let's just use the seeing auras as an example of one of them. Why is it, do you think, that you didn't incarnate into this world with those gifts? Why did you need that near-death experience to then allow you to have them?
I think we all do. I think we all do. What happened is that already from the moment you're born to almost 3 years old, what is happening? Your focus of attention changes. Your parents, everything around you, bring your focus of attention to the outer reality. See, so you're now fixed in the outer. And when you fix in the outer, you simply kind of, let's call it, put in the back room the inner. See, and the outer was very heavy, and the outer was very heavy in the reality I was born, because I was born in Colombia, a country at war. And it was all these a space of worry, all this space of when the next horrible thing is going to happen. See, the outer reality was very heavy. I also was born in a home in which my parents have been forced to marry. It was like almost like an arranged marriage, you could say. And then they were very unhappy people. See, the outer reality is so strong, so much trauma, that for children it happened. We're forced to look out. And when you have a child that have grown probably in a more happy environment, you can see them for years, even talking with the imaginary friend, being more connected with that inner. So it all depends on how your outer reality is presenting to you. So we all have these abilities. We are all light. We're all interconnected. But it depends how strong the focus of attention in the outer and how early it comes to you that you disconnect from the truth that you are.
That's fair. That makes sense. I understand. Past lives. You've been able to access past life experiences. What's your story there?
That was something I was not expecting to happen. And I'm going to, before that, say something that is very cool, which is the reflection of how the rest of my life growing up was. And many, many years after my first near-death experience, once I started to ask the right questions. The being so like say, ask the right questions and you will get the right answers. And the questions are very simple. I said, why my near-death experience happened when I was so young? The first one. And they said, because you were old enough to remember, but young enough not to be conditioned yet. So in that line of thought, same thing when I started to have visions of the future and I started to have memories of past lives. I didn't even know anything of this. I grew up in Colombia, not having access to any literature that talk about any of these. Of course, internet didn't exist back then, and none of these. So it all happened for me in a natural way. Same thing as I started to have out-of-body experience, everything. Same thing. I was 16 years old and I was invited to go to this hypnotherapy event. Never knew about that before. A friend, an uncle took me, a family member took me there, and I was so amazed with what this guy was doing on a stage, hypnotizing people. He was a very well-known person that did this. And then I ended up being on the stage. I wasn't planning this, but it was my birthday, and it's like, hey, chill, bring her to the stage. I ended up there, and then something happened when he hypnotized everybody, and I went into just that state of calmness, quietness. But for me, it was very fast because I started to meditate when I was 8 years old. For me, it was easy to go back into that state of being quiet. But I wasn't expecting what was about to happen. Suddenly, I was out of my body, seeing everybody from above. And I just was, wow, I was having fun with what was happening. And the guy was doing there his own show down there with everybody. And when he asked me to come back, I wouldn't. And then the guy and I wouldn't. And only when I felt the stress in this person, I came back. To the point that this show was being recorded, and this was not part of the show, and everybody after that, what happened? Why were you where? What? And even the guy, what happened? I said, I don't know. I just know that this was incredibly fun, and I want to do it again. And so after all this happened, my uncle introduced me to a guy that did hypnotherapy. He was a psychologist, because I told him I'm very interested in this. I want to go deeper and know what just happened. And I went to this guy, and of course, I told you I was born with respiratory illness. After the drowning, as you would imagine, it went worse. So now I am 16 years old, being sick for 16 years. And when I went to this guy, this hypnotherapist, my most important question was why I am sick. Why I am sick. Of course, I wanted to understand all the other things, but I also wanted to know why I was sick. And it is when we went into the hypnosis for the first time and looking for answer to why I was so sick. And Koit, this is the first time I realized that instead of seeing me and my experiences, I started to see the psychologist's life, his childhood. This is the first time I'm meeting this person. I didn't know who he was. And I'm seeing his childhood traumas, and I'm seeing all his stuff. And then I started to talk to him about his health, not mine.
How are you seeing it? Is it like a movie playing in your head, or?
Yes, it was like a knowing, like a movie. I could even, it's like a movie because I could see the scenes. I didn't even know he had a mustache, a beard. So I didn't know that under that mustache he had a scar. I couldn't know anything. So he had been born with, how you call this, split lip?
Cleft palate.
Cleft palate. How could I know that? And then I am mentioning all the sufferings he had around that, and how other children mock him, and how the other children laugh at him growing up. All this stuff I started to tell him, and I said, and he's how you know these things about, you don't even know me. And I said, shh, silence. Now that you know, you can heal. So the whole thing.
Sure, silence.
And the whole thing, instead of being the therapist, I became the therapist. I might say I was just 16 years old. And when I opened my eyes at Will, the two of us were in awe. How is this possible? So he said he was so interested about this case that he had a friend that was at that moment a pioneer in Colombia. He was starting to study everything related with past life experiences. He was also a hypnotherapist. He was, I don't know, he was just a psychologist or he was also a psychiatrist. I'm not sure, but he was in that line. And he he introduced us. And it's when I went to get this first time seeing this guy. And the day I went to his office, I was going through a really hard moment of bronchitis. I have chronic bronchitis. I had asthma. I was very ill all the time. And I went to his office that day feeling very ill. I even thought I couldn't go. I was there. And then again, this question, why am I so sick? That's what I wanted to know. And then now we were going to explore, to say something, see if we could access a past life. And the moment we went into there's a whole process, steps to get there. I saw myself when I was born in this life, and how cold, the coldness I felt when I came out of my mom. You know, like the baby's in that warm temperature and the room was cold. And I started to shake. And incredibly, you think about my near-death experience, one of the aspects was the cold water. So when I'm now being born in this life, I'm shaking. I'm so cold. I'm shaking that my body is actually physically shaking in that chair, talking with the doctor. And from that moment, whoop, I went back to a life where I was in a dungeon. And I have been put there because of my beliefs and my spiritual beliefs. And I was being actually killed by the Inquisition. And
The Spanish Inquisition.
Yes, and
Lovely.
I was, but I was in a dungeon. I recognized later in my life in Italy, because you know this is spread all over. And then now I am in this dungeon. I am almost naked, and the place is the size almost of my body. So I'm being boiled in this place, and I am about to die, and I'm praying for the moment I die. Imagine how desperate and how ill, and I'm coughing so hard. So it's when I knew that I am dying from respiratory ailment. So it was like tuberculosis or something like that. I'm coughing really badly, and I died. And I again felt that sense of relief from this experience that was so hard. And then I kept going back to many lives when I died from respiratory problems. This was just one of those. And then I reached back. It was like a couple of thousand years before this life, where I died in a war. And I was in this war, I was protecting my wife, and I died. And I think that's why this life was so impactful, because I could not protect her. I'm trying to protect her, and I'm killed by a spear. And the spear went through here and came out through here. And then I died. How did I die? I drowned in my own blood. And in many lives, I have not just died from respiratory problems, but drowning. How was my first near death? I drowned. So since that state, for many, many years, I kept kind of holding or bringing with me, carrying with me that ailment in the lungs. And then that very day, I felt the sense of, now I understand. Now I understand why, but I was just saying, now I understand why I had died from respiratory problems. I say, now I understand from where my suffering comes. I always had this deep, deep sadness. I said, I know where this sadness is coming from. I know where all this is coming from. And the moment I understood and I knew the source, the cause of all of it, I healed this very day. So this is a proof that what I experienced and what I saw was that real, because from this moment on, I'm 16 years old until today, was never sick again from
And
respiratory problems of that sort.
yeah,
That
and I like that story because I've heard others similar in terms of that past life things affect the present, and I got a couple of questions on it. But the first one would be, obviously you would naturally seen a shed load of doctors prior to you being 16,
oh
and
yeah.
then did you go back post 16 and say, look, it's gone, what happened, or did you not care because you fixed, so to speak?
Oh no, I didn't go any doctor, because now I am healed. Not just I'm healed, but again, we have to understand the culture I was born in. It's not like I had the insurance
I
I
see.
have now here. We didn't really have the money for it. It's not like I could have the luxury to go to a doctor and now explain how I was sick and now I'm not. Nothing. I just was never sick again. Never sick again. So that was just the gift of never being sick again. Don't need to go doctors anymore, actually.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I was just thinking from a scientific perspective, if they had that, a before and after snapshot, if you will, that would have been great for science and obviously naturally great for you. Because,
Exactly.
yeah.
No, that was not the case. I was just like, before that, yeah, it was the visits to the doctor for this child being sick. But after that, oh, not needed. No need to spend money in doctors anymore. So, but I have to complete with something that then actually I got some little bit of a proof in the future.
Hmm.
Many, many, many years later, I had a kidney stone. Many years, 20 years later, or even more, 20 something years later, I had a kidney stone. And then I ended up in the hospital with the most horrendous pain you can imagine. I'm in the emergency room, and then they did an X-ray to see, to check this stone. And then, of course, when they do the X-ray, you get your whole chest in the X-ray. And then I don't know if always, but I did. And then the doctor came with like a worry, like, oh, we're worried because it's not the stone, but there's a scar in your lung. There's a scar in your right that we cannot. They got worried thinking this could be cancer or something because it was a big scar. So they're like, we have to monitor. So doctor wise, it happened later in my life. They say we have to monitor this. So for a couple of years, I had to get X-rays to make sure that this scar wasn't changing, because otherwise it meant that I could have something or some disease or tumor or some cancer, who knows. But they X-ray a few times and nothing changed with this scar. And they said the only way you could have got this scar, you had really some kind of illness, something that scarred the lung like this. Just
I thought you were going to say then that that was like a shadow of the spear. Do you know what I
that's what
mean?
exactly. So my thought immediately, because it was exactly where I
In
seen
the
it.
position.
And I just said, I didn't say that to the doctor, but I said, no, I know that that's not a disease. I know that he even said for some scar like this, it had to be even a case of like severe tuberculosis. And I just said, yeah, but not in this life. See, when I realized exactly that's the place where the spear had gone through. Not just that, but in the other side, exactly where I saw it came out, I have like one of those it's like when fat tissue accumulates and if
Lipoma
it's yeah, it's like a little
or
lump,
cyst?
like
Yeah.
a cyst. So incredibly for the place it went in, I had the scar in the lung, and the out, I have a cyst. So it's like exactly.
That's like the in and the out then, isn't it? Because it's pushing out, yeah. My question would be, why do you think the physicality gets sort of like mixed up or comes into the next life? Why is that? Because if you're in that chap that got speared, you'd think. I mean, I'm only conjecture here, but you'd think his challenges in his life would be in that life. Why does it then impact the next one?
I guess because we were not able to heal. You know what I have come to experience and understand is that the fact that we leave this physical body doesn't mean that the emotional and the mental body we leave behind too. We keep our mental and let's call it our mind and the emotional body. If we don't work, let's call it cleansing it, clearing it, then we carry that, and then we may go through different, this is the way I see it. Say that we are eternal beings, and Ingrid is just a parenthesis in the eternity that I am. And I get many opportunities to clear and cleanse my mental, emotional, state of being. So when we die, I carry my intellect, and let's call it, we have the mind and the intellect. That is the one that makes understanding of what we are, and then so we carry our mind and our emotions with us. And in every life we get the opportunity to, let's call it, go to the root cause of things and being able to cleanse what needs to be cleansed, or make sense, or get deeper understanding. And if we have not healed the root cause of something, we keep carrying it. But the beautiful thing, people ask me, then you have to access past life experiences in order to heal. And I said, if you get the chance, you do. But if you don't, I say, know your life today. Everything that you are today, and the way your reactivity, the way you are today, your surrounding, everything is the mirror of your whole existence. That's why it's so important, and it's been used in centuries, the word know thyself. If you know who you are today, it's pretty much you can see a reflection of your many lives. So how can I work today and calming the mind, using tools to go within and start knowing the truth that you are. So the capacity to heal, the capacity to remember, the capacity to heal layers and to heal is here and now today with us. See, so yeah, if you have the chance to remember and go to check what happened in other past lives, do it. If not, then do the work with your own emotional and mental body here and now.
But it's a sad thing, though, isn't it? Because if you think about it, you lived X amount of years with your bronchitis and asthma, etc., and it took for you to visit a past life experience to then cleanse it. But presumably, there's a shed load of people out there that take an illness like yours throughout their whole life and never get a chance to cleanse it. And that's sad that that physicality then bleeds through to the next life in that respect.
Yes, but hey, I just also think that in everything, in every challenge in our lives, there's this word that I use, or this sentence that I always use. I think is very profound, very beautiful, and I'm so glad it came to my life. This sentence is, what is in the way is the way. So I see every challenge as an opportunity. So in my case, I had the chance to remember it faster when I was younger, but that doesn't mean that the ending of that challenge meant the ending of all challenges. I have had many other challenges, but each challenge in my life had opened for me the door to go deeper. to know deeper who I am. And sometimes that challenge was shaking me very hard at that moment in my life. For me, which for another person might represent sometimes a sickness, or sometimes the passing of someone, or the losing of a job, things that happen in our life that shakes us so hard that we pause, that we stop. At that moment, I already have the clarity to ask, what is this for? What is this trying to show me? I want to know. But for some people, that the moment of ask these questions doesn't come until they really get shaken hard. See? And it's when we stop and we say, we call for the light of awareness, the light of consciousness. And it's when we stop and we stop from looking outer and start looking inwards. So that's how I see every challenge, including illness, as an opportunity to grow and evolve. You know, I like to give this analogy. Imagine that there is a bird, and the bird is in the nest, and the bird is all comfortable. And suddenly the mom knows, oh, it's time for the bird to come out of the nest. It's already grow and is ready. You can always take two routes. The route of saying, oh, my mom is bad, she's kicking me out of the nest, and then you assume the role of a victim, can be the victim of anything. Or you can say, yeah, my mom knows. I mean, yeah, she knows what she's doing, and yeah, it's time for me to fly out of the nest, and then the process go a little smoother. But many of us resist, and we don't understand that what is happening. It could be an ailment, it could be a loss of a job, it could be the death of a person, whatever is like what you need to be in shaken hard to create change. So we don't see it that way. We just feel as victims of the situation, which is understandable. Then now imagine I am the bird in the nest, and I'm like, my mom is bad, she's kicking me out, and I resist, and now the mom leaves. She knows, no, this bird has to jump. So now I'm hungry, starving. See, and everything that is happening is a challenge. And now I am not leaving the nest despite the hunger. So now the nest is small because the bird have outgrown the nest. And despite this, I don't come out. And now the bird is doing his stuff all over the nest. So the nest stinks. But despite all this, so look, challenge and challenge and challenge, but the awareness is not there. So it's not the challenge, it's not the nest, it's not the outer, it's where is your awareness? What is the call for consciousness? What is the, I get it, I have to leave, all this is happening for me to go deeper within and observe the inner. So no, the bird is all in the outer. And the moment that despite all this, the bird is not leaving, let's call a hurricane comes and the branch of the tree breaks and the bird is forced out of the net. And now the bird extend the wings and start to fly. So if it wasn't for all these challenges, the bird could have never known that he could fly. See, and for some of us, it comes earlier. From some of us, it comes later in life.
It just goes to show that everything is there for a reason.
Everything.
And we just need to be aware of reasons, accept them, and then think, oh, what is the positive outcome here if I look at it in a different way?
Exactly. So I remember when I had the clear realization, nothing is happening to me. It's happening for me.
That's a nice one.
Everything has happened for me to be at this point of clarity, at this point of consciousness, at this point of awareness, and to reach the place where I am an empathic being, a loving being, a caring being, a compassionate being, a selfless being. See, so everything happened for me despite the sufferings. But again, if it wasn't for those sufferings, how can I appreciate well-being? How can I appreciate love? How can I appreciate connection? How can I appreciate health? How can I appreciate joy? So now it's like, oh, all these have brought me to this place of clarity and awareness.
I'm with you on that, by the way, because I know most people say, "Oh, why is there suffering in the universe?" Well, it's for that reason. If you don't know the lows, you can't experience the highs. Because what is it? It'd be just the same, and that's dull and boring. And what's the point then?
Yeah, how can you know joy if you've never been sad? How can you know health, well-being if you never have been sick? You
Hmm.
need this contrast, then appreciation, and not just appreciation, but the sense that you want to offer that to others. I want others. I said, compassion is love in action. It's when you really know it and you want others to feel that way too.
Hmm. A very noble cause that, eh? Trying to spread on what the feelings that you get to others, and I agree because I think so many people are masked in our lives by this 3D world and
Yes.
all the stuff that you know, yeah, and it is for the benefit of you, but so many people don't know about it or they ridicule it, but then therefore they're not going to feel the qualities of it, are they? Which is sad.
Yes. 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 I remember when I also went through, all of us, through many hardships. I reached a place of a very deep depression, despite being a very successful scientist after I've done years of career working for NASA. And I started to feel that none of that was really fulfilling me because I have walked away from incredibly. I after my first near there, I had all these incredible gifts. I could communicate with beings of light, everything. But there was a moment in my life where I walked away from all of that also because I had the sense that I wanted to be normal. I wanted to be like everyone else. Later in life, I also received the teaching when the beings of light said to me, "No, Ingrid, you were not looking to be normal. You were looking to belong. You were looking to be loved." All of us need that sense of belonging. And I needed also the sense of grounding. So for many years, I walked away. I told the beings of light, bye-bye. I just do my own thing. And yeah, of course, I lower my vibrational frequency. And by lowering my vibrational frequency, I started to also, there's a law called the law of resonance. If you lower your vibrational frequency, that's the frequency you attract. So many challenges that were even more harder and difficulties and things presented in my life and difficult people and many sufferings, despite of many successes too. And then when I reached that dark night of the soul, I thought about committing suicide. And it's when I two important clarities came to that moment. One clarity was wait one more day. And the other clarity was pray. Pray for clarity. It's not just the prayer of asking for things. That was a moment in my life. I was 39 years old and I prayed so deep. I prayed to God not to change my reality. I prayed to give me clarity about the whole thing. Give me clarity. I have become blinded and I want to see. And then the next day, I woke up with a very clear, direct answer. It was, it's funny because it's just simple, it's to the point. You need help, go to the psychologist. But to that point, I felt I didn't need anybody's help. I was very self-sufficient. I was this successful scientist. I mean, really. But I heard the voice, and then the inner voice that said you need this help. And I went to look for a psychologist. The very same day, I'm sitting in the NASA cafeteria talking to a friend, and she's like, "Oh, I have written the name of a doctor I found on Google. I had it with a good reviews. I had it on a piece of paper. And then I'm talking to her and she's like, oh, my daughter, she's had such experience. She's seen a psychologist, and she named the psychologist, and it's the same one I have written in the paper.
There you go. Another synchronicity for you.
Exactly. And that was not it. A third situation in which another person named the same doctor happened. 3 in one day? Okay, I have it clear. I'm going to this doctor. And I went to him, and he happened to be the person that I needed at the moment, a very, very spiritual person. To this point, I never met a psychologist. I really never met any psychologist, but I didn't know psychologists could be that spiritual, and he was. And then we started to talk, and after going to see him for a few months, he asked me to write a list of sufferings. And then I wrote the list, and when he read the list, he said, we read it together. He said, this is the first time in my 37 years of career that I have met someone that has suffered this much and is mentally stable. I was in shock. I'm like, what? And then it came this question that we all ask, and we ask to ourselves, why? Why me? Why me? Especially when we're in that place of being completely identified with the narrative and the drama. Why me? And the answer came. The answer came that turned the light back on, and it was a very simple answer, Koit. Why me? Why not?
Most people, right, will say that that's almost like a cop-out answer, but I understand it can be that.
Yes, because the way he said, why not? And he started to say, Ingrid, look, thanks to this, you're done this, and thanks to this, that, and thanks to this, I realized 2 things. One, that he had been listening, and the power of listening to each other carries so much healing. Because he wasn't reading an old book saying, look, thanks, no, he's like, look, thanks, and he was connecting all the knots. And I'm like, wow. And as he was saying, thanks to this, and this, and this, and that, I started to see purpose behind everything. And it's when I had that clear realization. I said 3 miracles happened that day. One that I already mentioned is when I realized, oh, nothing had happened to me. It happened for me. So I could be in this exact moment with this doctor having all this awareness, this moment of consciousness, this moment of clarity, and seeing everything purposely was like, wow. And again, I have this enormous empathy, compassion, love, understanding because of all of this. And now I really can go to others and say, I know how you feel because I have been there. So it comes this beautiful, powerful sentence that says, do not waste the sufferings of your ancestors and your sufferings. Use them to grow, use them to evolve. Another thing, I grew up in a country of war, but then on top of that, for a few years in my career as a scientist, I live in a war zone where every time I went to collect samples because in this area had been an oil spill. So I was sent there to do all the environmental impact statement of this oil spill in a war zone. When I went to take samples, I had to go to the field with guys carrying M16s, and we all protected to not be killed. So I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. But after this, I stopped seeing things that way. My whole perception changed, and now I call it post-traumatic growth. What is the good of all this? This made me realize I'm really a warrior. I am a resilient being. I am a strong being. There's so much in me. How can I be here sitting alive talking to this doctor despite all these sufferings? See, I started to see the good, the juicy good. The other thing, I started to feel a sense of deep gratitude. if nothing happened to me but for me. So thanks to this, look, hear the wording, thanks to this, that, thanks. Gratitude happen. When you're in a state of gratitude, your vibrational frequency go high because you are an elevated. Gratitude is one of the highest vibrational frequencies there is. Because why you feel great, gratitude, the things that make you feel great. Now, I feel great for all this because this brought me to where I am today.
I agree on that. When I lost my job, most people would look at that as a really crappy thing to happen to someone. I actually really enjoyed it and I wanted it. So I was incredibly thankful, and it led me to the fact that I now do music full time, plus, just being full time. So there are things out there if you really want them.
It opened other doors, and that I love you saying that. Sometimes deep in, we want to change. We just not have the strength to make that decision. The fear takes over, and then you stay where you stay just because of fear. But we want that change, and sometimes it's by force that the change have to happen. So all that was happening in that moment. My second miracle that day was the realization that all that is true, my only truth, is that I'm sitting in front of this doctor and nothing else is real. Every thought, every other thing is in my head. So I felt empowered because it's like, oh, I can do whatever I want with what is in my head. Wow. So that was now a moment of empowerment. Imagine now everything has purpose, everything happened for me, and now I can do whatever I want with the things that are in my mind. Empowerment. High vibrational frequency. And then from there, what we know as true forgiveness happened. Because normally we use forgiveness as something of the ego. I forgive you, but I forgive you, but I don't forget, or whatever. In this moment was the realization of what if everything happened to me. Sorry, if nothing happened to me but for me, then what is to forgive? So I could say
it was planned, exactly.
Yeah, I could say two things, or everything was forgiven, or nothing needs forgiveness. That at that moment was, imagine being in that sense of freedom. Everything is forgiven because nothing ever really truly happened to me.
And I love that. Ingrid, we are now going to take a slightly ajar step into a different world as we enter the Koit Zone. Koit Zone! So, Koit Zone, random questions. Answer best you can. Simple as that. We're going to lighten it before the end of this show. So here we go.
We've been here already long enough.
Yeah. What's going on? Your custom burger. How are you building it?
Wow. With a lot of looking within, self-awareness, keep working on myself every day, and using the tools that I apply to myself to become the model of it. I share with people, and I said, I share this with you because this works, and I've seen it in other people and it works. So I love that, how you're building your own burger.
No, but I want your literal answer.
My literal answer?
Yeah, this is what happens in the Koit Zone. We just get very trivial and basic. So how are you personally preparing a custom burger to eat? How are you building it?
I have to start by saying that I don't like to cook that much.
That's fair enough.
Because I have to. Another thing, I like veggie burgers. So
you have bun, veggie burger. What else goes on it?
On veggie burger, I put lettuce, I put tomatoes. Not too much of adding too much sauce in it. A little bit of like my mayo, and I guess that's it.
Cool. See, it's that simple. Koit zone is very base level.
And of
Is
course with French fries.
obviously naturally. Is there a skill that you haven't mastered or even tried at that you wish you had or want to? As an example, like playing guitar. You might want to play guitar, but you just never tried it yet. Is there a skill that you're after that you've not tried?
Oh wow. Let me think. I am a very daring person, so let me see something. I have, it's funny. I have to think about that because I feel pretty content. I just not really thinking about the things I haven't really done.
That's good then. That means you've tried a lot of things.
I would just say sorry to just go into the place that it sounds too spiritual, but it's just inner mastery. Keep just being the master of my own self. That's what I have to say. Just keep working on it. Keep working on it. And maybe as we talk, I would think about something, but
Now that, to be honest, that's a good answer anyway.
I'm pretty content, Kai.
There you go. Then you're winning at life. You're winning the game. Do you have a favorite piece of music or song?
Yes, I really like classic music. I really like things that help me go quiet and calm.
Calming.
And I have to say something.
Hmm.
I love music, but I love silence. I like being in complete silence. So sometimes even when my son and my husband leave and he goes to school, he goes to work and the house is quiet and in silence, I love that.
And then you can go and lie on the bed and just go, ah.
Just quiet. It's like I love silence, but I also like how you call it, the pan flute. I
Oh,
like the
panpipes. Yeah, yeah.
pan pipes, and I love things that are sometimes solo instruments, piano, a good piano concert.
Simple and serene. I like it.
Yeah.
What is the oldest thing you own?
Let me think. The oldest thing I own, besides pictures,
Or your husband? Yeah.
yeah, 22 years now. I'm trying to think the oldest thing I have gone through 2 times in my life where I lost all material possessions, lost
Wow.
everything. So now I have to think from there, maybe things that came from my childhood. Maybe my childhood albums that my mom, before my mom passed, she gave to each one of us our albums when we were little. So she had, and when she got really sick, she gave to each one of us that album of pictures that she put together when we were little. So maybe I would say that is the oldest thing I have.
Cool. Thank you. What is the best thing you've ever found?
Myself, God, my connection with God. I think my first near-death experience and going to that state of losing, or let's say dissolving into the arms of God is the best thing that could have happened in my life.
No, that's cool. I like that answer as well. On a similar theme with like the found theme, have you ever found money or gold or anything like that in the ocean?
No, no, I haven't. No.
That's a
But
shame because I thought like if you were doing a load of scuba diving, you're like, oh look, a gold doubloon or something.
I never did, but many beautiful fishes, and I have done a lot of the kind of diving many people wouldn't dare to do. You know what happened? You know what is probably the one of the most amazing things that could happen to me in my life, Koit? Losing the fear of death. Because losing the fear of death have brought me to do incredible things. I used to dive in caves in wrecks in at night, or I've done all kind of things that I might be daring. I've traveled the world by myself. I've been in 63 countries. I've done a lot of going to live in different places. I don't know. I've done many. That's why it's hard for me to find which one is it, because maybe some people have a little bit of more routine life. I haven't. Like I said to you, I became a marine scientist, traveled the world, been everywhere, became a diver, been done all kind of daring different things. So life have been pretty, I would almost can say that I have lived many lives in this life. I've had 3 near-death experiences. I mean, what else do you want me?
Loads more.
I found all the golden doubloons in many different kinds of experiences, I might say.
I like that, because that's also true, because I always say it, money doesn't mean anything. It's the experience that means more than cash anyway. So well played. What is the worst thing you've ever eaten? Now you must have some good ones here.
Let me see the worst thing I've eaten. Wow. All these questions are and so simple that they become, because I'm trying to really think about the worst thing I've ever eaten. Again, it's part of an experience. I don't know if you like these ones, because mine are other experiences, but the first one in my life that I realized that I was eating animals was the worst day of my life. And I was very little. I was 5 years old. And there was a chicken soup. And in the soup, there was the head of the chicken.
No. Yeah, I don't want to see that.
That I'm telling you everything. And the moment I see that in my soup, and I had the realization that that's an animal, I went into complete shock. I said, there is a chicken in my soup. And from that day on, I had pure aversion for, I didn't know what I was eating. So they had to pretty much swear to me that I was not eating animals. So that happened since I was 5 years old. So I refused to eat anything that had animals inside.
That is a different world to England, because in England we just complain about, hey waiter, there's a fly in my soup. You've got, hey waiter, there's a chicken head in my soup. Yeah, different world, different ball game.
It has to.
On a personal level, so you, speaking as you, have you ever been lost before in a place? So like in a country, have you ever been lost where you don't know where you are?
Yes, actually, yes. Oh gosh, I wrote about that in my book. I was lost with 3 friends in the Andes.
Oh wow.
We were lost. Yeah, and it was the moment it was one of those moments in my life where we thought we were done, because we were lost for 5 days in the mountains in the Andes. And this is a very high possibility that we would have never returned. So I say it's by the miracle, again, by the universe wanting me to be here, that we found our way back. But yeah, we were lost and hungry and desperate, and we were very high up in the Andes, so we were cold and miserable, but we found our way back at the very end. Yeah.
5 days, wow. Have you ever run out of petrol in a car or motorbike?
Petrol, but
Yeah, have you ever run out of what you might call gas in America? Fuel.
If I ever have driven a car?
Yeah, have you ever run out of petrol or fuel for the car?
Oh, no, right. Oh, no, but almost. Oh, my husband is mad at me all the time because I forget. I don't think about it. I never did, but I've been close. Like, to be like, oh, am I going to reach the gas station? Like, oh my God. And thankfully I did, but more than one time I have been close, because I don't pay attention. I don't. So,
right. Last question in the Koit zone. What is your favorite film or movie?
I love Lord of the Rings. I love fantasy. Yes,
good choice.
One of my favorites. And Harry Potter. I just love fantasy, and I love all the stuff that is kind of magical. So
do you like science fiction?
I do. My favorite.
Do you like Star Wars?
I do love it. So I saw it, and yes.
More thumbs up for you. Well played. You are winning all the thumbs up today. Right, that leaves us with two final questions before we wrap up. The first of which is, what else do you on a personal level like to do in your downtime? Any activities or guilty pleasures?
I love walking. I love biking. Oh, I love the water. One of the things in my life, I love just being in the water, and I love traveling. I love knowing the world, knowing people, other cultures. Yes.
Lovely, lovely. And that leads us to the final question is, are there any projects that you're currently working on? Is there another book in the works or anything else for you?
Yes, actually there is. I'm writing I'm writing few things. I'm writing two books. One is about the three near-death experiences, but more in depth with the clarities I have gained for the past few years. And like, yeah, very in a very in-depth way. So that's a book I'm writing, and I am writing another book. But again, the two of them are coming side to side. The other is the teachings more in depth, especially the teachings I have received for the past 15 years when I reconnected back with the beings of light. Because my first book is autobiography of the first 40 years of my life. So the other years, as I said to you, reconnected, I have received many, many more teachings. So those two books are happening side to side. And now in December, we're with my sister, my youngest sister. We're in this very beautiful project together. We're writing a collection of children books, and the first one is coming right now in December, and is the whole collection about Pincus. Pincus is the name my mom gave me when I was a little child. It doesn't have to do anything with Ingrid, my nickname, but my oldest sister, all my sisters have names that could be shortened. Lisbeth, Liz, Liliana, Lily, Fabiola, Fabi, and Ingrid,
In.
In.
Yeah.
So my mom called me Pincus. I don't know, she came with this name. And then the whole collection is about the experiences of Pincus growing up that are very spiritual, but at the same time very grounded. So I call it, the one coming up now is Pincus and the Power of Faith. It will be Pincus and the magic. Oh no, this is Pincus and the Magic of Faith. The next one will be Pincus and the Power of Truth. Pincus this, Pincus that. So it's going to be at least, we're thinking 5 to 7 books. We're already about to get the first one out, and we're working in the second one for this children's series. So
Quality. That's amazing. Ingrid, thank you ever so much for appearing on KoitCast today. What I will say to everyone listening, go and check out the links in the description to Ingrid's site, where you can see all the wondrous stuff she's done and how to get in contact with her, etc. Ingrid, thank you ever so much for appearing. It's been a blast.
thank you so much. Oh, this has been an honor and a lot of fun. I love these quick questions that I I could not even get at the beginning, but I did. Did my
Lovely.
best.
Thank you ever so much. Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.
To watch other KoitCast episodes, please click the image top left. To subscribe to my channel, please click the image top right. Please like and share to help KoitCast grow, and most importantly of all, please click the notification bell so you never miss an upload.